What is the best decision you've made while drunk? Decided that maple leaves look like little hands and proceeded to high five every tree I saw. Happiest night ever. Still high five cute leaves sometimes and give myself a good chuckle. Always wondered when I'd stop being a lurker and finally be compelled to comment. This is apparently it. At the end of the night I asked out a girl from our work group who I thought I would never have a chance with. That was almost 3 years ago and we just got married last month. I used to deliver small airplanes as a sort of side gig. The best part for me was simply being by myself, often for days, and just enjoying leisurely flights over the US. One evening several years ago, I'd had a few too many and invited my dad to join me on a 3-4 day trip to deliver some guy's new plane from the Northwest. Disclaimer, although I care about him, Dad can be very stressful to travel with on long trips. So the next morning I was a little annoyed with myself for doing this. Due to medical issues, that turned out to be the last vacation he ever had. And we had a great time. I'd hate to have missed that week with him. On edit. Thank you for the awards everyone. Happy Thanksgiving. I made grilled cheese at 2 AM once, but instead of using plain toast I made it with garlic bread. I've left, and continue to do so, a pint glass of ice on my bedside table so I can't drink it immediately. But when I wake up with that 4 AM cotton mouth thirst, big glass cold water waiting, no getting up. Not to couple with my homie after a huge mansion party, where we all got drunk. I had done it before but got some smart impulse not to this time. After I took an Uber and got home to sleep, I woke up from my alcohol-induced sleep and found out from his mom that he ended up flipping the car into a canyon. The roof caved, he broke his neck, and ended up with what luckily turned out to be temporary paralysis. As thankful as I am that he's well and walking now, and just as functional a person as he once was, I'm glad I didn't take the car ride with him. We had a get together at my place a couple years ago, just me and 3 of my classmates. One of them recently broke up with his GF and was heartbroken. We got quite drunk and they left the next morning. But said classmate came back for his charger and told me that thanks to what I've said the day before, they are getting back together with GF. I was glad obviously, but to this day I have no clue what I've told him. I was very drunk. They're still together BTW. 9 years ago, stumbling to the pitta shop after the bars closed with my friends, I drunkenly ordered a falafel pitta instead of my usual. Blew my mind and changed my life. Quit my job. I'm now half a year from graduating medicine. When I was 21 I was quite the alcoholic and I had started using sugar quite frequently. It started to develop into an addiction as I was doing it alone at my house on a daily basis. One day I was drinking alone at home and went to the gas station to pick up some smokes. On the way back, a high school friend of mine was walking his dog, and I picked him up. He wanted to smoke some weed and so we went back to my place. He started talking about how he just got out of rehab and was telling me about how bad addiction was, all of the signs, etc. He had no clue I was using coke. I very emotionally opened up to him and ended up throwing a little less than an 8-ball into the trash. Haven't touched it since. To this day the decision to go to the gas station to buy cigarettes when I was drunk was the best one I have ever made. I bought a mascot-sized Pikachu costume from China. Didn't even realize until a few weeks later when I started getting angry emails and Chinese chasing me for payment. It's quite fun though. I tend to dress it in other costumes and take it to conventions. Here's me attending UK Comic Con as Pikachu Thor. Edit. Forgot about this. Here's an interview I did with a lovely person about it all. Skip to 7:20. A friend and I were very drunk and I was talking about how I wanted to get a dog. I've had them my whole life but never one of my own. We browsed the local shelter's website and I found one that looked and sounded perfect. The next morning, we went to the shelter. We were both super hungover, so much so that my friend threw up in the corner of their outdoor area. I met my future dog, played with him a bit and told them I would be back the next day to take him home. And if I'm being honest, I was in that half drunk half hungover phase. I went back the next day and picked him up. My friends kept asking if I was rushing into it and I just brushed them off. 7 years later, we've moved 5 times, including across the country. And he's been my best friend the entire time. He's been the one constant in my life since I got him. Although I personally regret nothing. Please do not get a dog on a drunken or sober whim unless you are 100% dedicated. Recovered alcoholic here. I was drunk when I made the decision to ask a friend for help getting sober. Best decision I ever made. Not just while drunk. I wrote "Get with the cookie delivery guy" as my entry on the goals for spring semester list we posted on the wall in my college apartment. Then we invited the cookie delivery guy up for a party. That was almost 8 years ago. We got married last October. Hosted a massive college house party and I was extremely intoxicated and made the decision to steal my roommate's Bacardí and mix with orange juice. Definitely should have stopped at this point. I don't remember much. But I remember pouring about a shot of orange juice and filling the tall glass with rum until it became clear. I woke up the next morning next to the very large empty Bacardí bottle and feeling wonderful, however remorseful that I stole from my best friend. I profusely apologized that evening, when friend finally recovered and committed to replacing said bottle, but he broke out into an uncontrollable laughter, to the extent it caused him to dry heave. The bottle was destined to join our many decorative liquor bottles and had been filled with water accordingly. I never lived down my night of binge drinking Bacardí H2O. I booked a vacation to New Orleans at 3 AM while blackout drunk. I got awesome deals on airfare and a nice hotel. Even booked it to perfectly fit into my work schedule. I have no idea how I pulled it off, but it was like getting a gift from a stranger. Bought a sweet dinosaur print shirt from a dodgy Chinese vendor. Only read the reviews afterwards and it seemed that I was most likely to receive something entirely different if I got anything at all. 2 months later what turns up? My awesome dinosaur shirt. Happy days. Duck my now husband on 30 years. Weirdly I met my ex stone cold sober. I think drunk me might have better taste in men. I was dating this girl. She was a solid 10/10. Absolutely incredible. I couldn't believe how lucky I was. She was dumb and boring, but incredibly good looking. I held on to her for 3 years before I couldn't deal with the boring conversations. When my little brother died she texted me OMG RIP and so I got drunk and told her to piss off. This summer I was drinking at a beach with a fire pit like this one. We kept the fire going all night and since I hadn't eaten dinner I brought 2 frozen pan pizzas. I heated them on the concrete part overhanging the fire and it was no joke the best pan pizza I've ever had. It's the only way I heat them now. To quit drinking. Another night of embarrassing myself forced me to sleep in the back of my car because I was no longer welcome at the place I intended. I was tired of it. I said I'll never do it again. And 5 years later I haven't so far. You know the schnapps with the gold flakes in them? I spit them out and save them. In 20 more years I'll have about 1/16th of an ounce of gold and cirrhosis. Bought a doormat that read doorbell broken. Yelled ding dong. Put what was left of my wages on a 50-1 horse-it one. I ordered tap shoes one night after not owning a pair in 15 years. Now it's my go-to activity between conference calls and sometimes during them on mute. My ankles feel stronger so that's good. I'm a very cautious person so any decision I make is finalized while drunk. I've already made up my mind sober but a drink or two makes me pull the trigger. I bought a one-way plane ticket out of the country. The next day, after sobering up, I decided to just roll with it. I quit my job as an engineer, broke up with my significant other, and ended up a much happier person because of it. To move back home. We moved around so much that I didn't really have a hometown but the place I ended up graduating high school from felt more like home than anywhere. I moved out of state after high school, became severely depressed, lost my job and my dog, and had literally nothing in life left to look forward to. I drank a 5th of Jim Beam one night after having a bad depressive episode and felt more homesick than I had in my entire life. I decided then and there to move back. I got up with one of my old friends. He helped me get decent job for a 19-year-old. We ended up dating, and now we've been married for almost 14 years. Life has turned out okay. When I drunk drove, got pulled up and lost my license for 2.5 years. It's simultaneously my worst and best decision. Worst for obvious reasons. Best, because it was the final slap to the face I needed to wake up to myself and my serious drinking issues and suicidal ideations. Now I'm sober, off the piss, my depression has finally ducked off, and I'm getting my license back at the end of January. That poor decision may well have saved my, or someone else's, life in the long run. Only about 3 beers and so not super drunk but drunk enough. Spinning records at my friend's house. End of the 90s, it was cool, I swear. He had a bunch of people over. People were sort of filtering in and out of the room in the basement where the turntables were set up. At some point I looked up and everyone had left the room except this one redhead girl. Instant decision to stop what I was doing and introduce myself. 21 years later. Hell yeah, I did. Not me, but my friend has some tech savvy friends, and years ago he bought a ton of Bitcoin in a blackout when the price was around $5 each. He forgot that happened until he stumbled onto the old hard drive years later when Bitcoin was very high. He's beyond rich now. I went to a party in college and came home with a cat. I was petting the house owner's cat and he asked if I wanted a kitten. They had found him outside and he was in rough shape. He is now 7 years old and appropriately named Milson. My friend and I were drunk when we decided to do a 2,000-mile motorcycle trip. We did it a few months later and had a blast. We now have a rule that if we both agree to a ridiculous trip while drinking, the agreement must be honored. About 4-ish years ago I was drunk browsing OkCupid and ran across the profile of a guy I had seen many times before but thought was way out of my league. I sent him a silly message and went to bed. I had forgotten when I woke up, got a message alert and was shocked to see it was him. We've been married for 1.5 years. And in 2 weeks we are welcoming a little girl into the world. 10/10 with drunk message the hot guy again. Not ruining my relationship to the girl I'm best friends with since kindergarten because I decided to stop trying to get in bed with her. Talking to the girl next to me in a bar. Married 30 years now. I bought a brownie pan that has extra edges for more burnt sides. No regrets. Signed up for a foreign TV commercial. I didn't have the time, free, new job, or a necessary passport, and the production company pushed me to sort those things regardless. Completely out of my comfort zone. When we were flown out for filming, I met the girl of my dreams and now live in that country. I never take risks. I thought I'd grow old in the village I grew up in. Announced my presidential candidacy. Last year around this time I got blackout drunk on Irish car bombs and did all my Christmas shopping online, which at that point I had been against doing, and mostly everyone loved their gifts. The ones who weren't too impressed were the ones that received a bobblehead figurine that looked just like me. I guess I figured the best gift I could give was more of me. Decided to check into rehab. Having drunken, unprotected sex with my wife in our room at the Luxor in Vegas resulted in the birth of my youngest son 9 months later. I don't think I could love anyone in the world more than I love him. Best drunk decision ever. A few days after a night of heavy drinking, I woke up to a text and email from my bank saying there was a debit withdrawal for $1,000 initiated on the day I was drunk. Sober me had been meaning to open a Roth IRA. Drunk me decided to get it done. Still scared the it out of me at first. An Amazon box was delivered to me with a SNES Classic. Had so much fun with it. No memory of ordering it. When I checked my email it was ordered at like 3 AM on a Saturday. Thanks drunk me, I finally got to play through Super Metroid. Early 2000s. Co-worker drunkenly bid on an eBay auction. Woke up the next day to a congratulatory email stating he'd made the winning bid of $100. It was an 8x10 autographed and framed photo of Mr. T. He had no regrets. Came home from the bar at 2:30 one night and seasoned a pork shoulder and popped it in the oven before I went to bed. Woke up at 8 to the most amazing smell and a perfectly cooked pork shoulder to pull apart and devour for breakfast. 10/10 would do again. Edit. Also met my wife at said bar. So that's up there too. My brother ordered a turkey fryer and didn't even know what it was when it showed up. But that thing has made many delicious turkeys ever since, and I think that was an incredibly drunk purchase. Not so much a decision as it was an accident. I was sending a FWB video over FB Messenger of me standing over my phone camera jerking off, her request, when I accidentally sent it to a girl I had been crushing on with the same first name. I nearly had a heart attack while sending 50 watch messages in the span of 15 seconds. She sent back her phone number with a smiley face. To quit drinking. It's been almost 8 years. To sit down in my friend's car instead of going back inside to have a six with this hot chick. When I was 17, my friends had this one going away party. It was probably the first time I drank alcohol. I was sitting next to a girl who initiated conversation with me, which was a shocker. We talked and danced all night. I got pretty ducked up in general, and I never had sex before. I remember my buddy always kept condoms in his car. When I got inside the car I sat down and decided to just go to sleep. I was too afraid of having sex, and too afraid to go back inside and tell her no, so I fell asleep in his car. The next day she had already left, but a friend of mine decided to brag about having sex with her. He bragged about this for a month or two and never brought it up again. It was weird, especially for him. I found out later that he caught something from her. Never knew exactly what it was and never wanted to ask. Just very thankful I didn't have a sex with her. My time to shine. I was miserable at my job, drinking every day to stave off the desire to end myself. Saw a cheap flight at around midnight to Russia for $580 round trip from my local airport 3 weeks from that day. Booked it. Told my boss the next day, I'm taking my 2 weeks paid, plus an additional week unpaid. First solo trip I'd ever done. I'm from the US. Hadn't looked into it at all. Turns out it's a $260 plus each of a visa plus a $30 invitation from a tour company. I don't speak Russian. IDK. I had to work that all out in 2 weeks. The time I spent trying to learn some courtesies and the alphabet. Cyrillic was invaluable. BTW. Best ducking trip ever. Everyone just wanted to know why I came to their country, especially in winter. So damn friendly. Everyone just wanted to talk and share drinks. I've always liked Russia, not sure why, and I'm going to get out of European Russia next time. I used that trip to go to Finland and Estonia too. Northern Lights off the checklist, all over a $12 bottle of whiskey. Made a move on a very shy, cute boy I'd had my eye on at a few other get-togethers. Going on almost 17 years together. Best decision of my life. Thanks. Booze. Also I'm 14 months sober now. Booze no longer had any good decision making power for me. Buying Maya, Nazi German Shepherd puppet, from the TV show Danger 5. A few years ago the producers of the show put on an auction to get rid of a bunch of props. I wanted to get the copy of Sensible Chuckle, but bidding on that got crazy. Ended up selling for $14k. I still really wanted something from the show because it's one of my favorites. But the question was what? After a night of whiskey drinking, I decided to go big and try to get the puppet. It was the very first laugh I got on the show, since it appeared in the opening. So in a way it's even more special than the magazine since it sets a tone of ridiculousness. Ended up costing me $1,000. But I'm so happy I made that purchase. For those of you unfamiliar with the show, it's a hilarious Australian comedy about a group of spies who are trying to kill Hitler. But the show, at least the first season, is shot like it's from the 1960s. Cute. Here are some of the scenes featuring my puppet. The first scene is the one I mentioned earlier. And cute. Bonus video of my puppet watching himself. One night stand with one of my good friends. He's now my fiance registered sinus X. I was on the way home after the bar and I had this huge gut feeling that I needed to turn my Uber around at 2 AM when I had work at 6 AM to meet up with my friends at a party. I met my boyfriend of 2 years that night. I was drunk off my rocker one night after a party. It might have been Halloween, but I fell asleep on my best friend's stairs to the 3rd floor. His younger sister lived there at the time and found me asleep. She asked me to go to her bed and sleep it off. And I said if college we went to taught me anything, it's to ask can I kiss you before doing it, and she said no and took me to bed where I slept. The next morning I went downstairs and had breakfast with her and made sure she knew I wasn't gonna be weird about it and that if I thought she would be a good romantic partner it was only because we were already thick as thieves and that any additional relationship would be bonus. I assured her that I'm pretty darn happy with how our relationship was already. We stayed friends and I kept her brother as my best friend. 3 years of normal friendship later, she asked me up again and now, another 3 years later, we're married with a beautiful kid. I have always held the position that her friendship is our baseline existence and that her romance is just gravy. I made Banj French toast. It's delicious. I applied for a job that I thought would never consider me. I was trashed and just thought, duck it, what's the worst that could happen? Turns out I got the job. Hid my money from myself in Vegas. I was there for 2 nights and did pretty decent night 1. Night 2 I blacked out a little bit before bed. Next day I wake up and I'm short about $120. I was so upset thinking I must have gambled it away before going to my room. On the drive home we hit a zone where we had no signal for radio or phones. So I started looking through my photos to kill time. I find a video of myself in my room looking at the camera greeting myself with, "Hey dip it. I know you're blacked out right now. So I'm going to save you from yourself. Here's $120 non-spending money and I put it at the bottom of your bag." I pulled out my bag and sure as it found that money, made the hangover a little more bearable. Once I ducked a friend while drunk and our relationship is now 4 years old. So at the time my friend was heartbroken cause his girlfriend just broke up with him. I suggested we should drink it off. We were so beaten up that I didn't remember what happened. The next day my friend thanked for the advice and I was like, what advice? Apparently that I said things like, don't worry, there are more girls out there, just forget that hoe and hug your bro. I don't remember a ducking thing. But a month after that he got a new girlfriend. The end. Asked out my now husband. Just broken up with my ex and wanted to hook up with someone. Well, we've been married since 2012. I was absolutely plastered off a bottle of Jameson in my final year of university and at a fresh week pub night and I drunkenly told my massive crush that it didn't matter what happened. We were going to end up together one day. She was very much not interested at the time. We're now happily married and have been together for nearly 10 years. Drinking water before going to sleep. Best idea every single time. Ordered a starter box set for Warhammer 40,000. Now I've no friends nor money, but plenty of tiny plastic dudes. Years ago I had this huge crush for my good friend's brother. Never was brave enough to admit either of them. Only about 3 other friends knew about it. While I was drinking with one of them and talked about my crush and how dreamy he was, it started really piss off my friend that all did was just talking about it and doing nothing to improve the situation. She got wicked idea. She partly bribed and partly dared me to call my crush's sister, my good friend, and confess. After a couple drinks more and more drunk stupidness, I decided to do just that. First I texted her and asked if I can call her. She texted yes. I called her and said, don't be mad. Promise me you won't get mad. But I love your brother and have loved him years now. She was dumbfounded and asked what I wanted her to do about it. I said, IDK, but don't be mad, and hung up. Long story short, she did something about it and find out that her brother had crush on me also. Things led to other things and we have been together now 6 years and are planning to get married. His sister is still good friend of mine and still laughs about this story. She said it will be part of wedding speech. Now she says that she does not understand why did I, though she would be mad at me. I think I was afraid that she would see my crush or something which would ruin our friendship. Drunk phone calls are usually big no for me, but this one changed my life.